I want to say, considering the subject matter of this video, that I don't think of myself as a victim. I don't want to have a victim mentality. I know that loads of people who have been through way worse than what I've been through in my life, so, you know, I don't see any point in having a mentality that, oh, my life is terrible because all this stuff was done to me. I mean, other people have been through and survived much, much worse, so I don't really feel like any of the instances that I'm going to mention like really did long-term psychological damage at all. So I debated on whether to even record this because I don't really consider these to be important events in my life, but you know, they are part of my life, so I guess I might as well talk about them. So the first time I remember something, you know, gross and uncomfortable happening was, I'm gonna say I was probably in the 9 to 10 year old range. I don't remember exactly how old I was. And I was over at my grandmother and grandfather's house, paternal, and my grandmother wasn't there for some reason. It was just my grandfather. And I was sitting in a recliner in the living room, and he came in and he put his hands on the arms of the recliner and leaned in and kissed me. French kissed me for what seemed like an eternity, because I did not know what was going on. I was completely innocent and didn't know about anything sexual or even much about kissing, really. I just knew that it was really gross and made me feel really weird, and I wanted him to stop. And he finally did. And he never did anything else to me. But, you know, I guess I must have been about 10, because I remember Mom was working a lot at the time, and a couple of times she didn't have any sitter to take us to, so by this time my grandfather had moved out of the house, my grandmother's house, because they had gotten a divorce. And so there were a couple of times that, because she was working like third shift at a factory and needed us to have a place to spend the night, and my grandfather's house was the only place she could find. And I remember just really, really dreading going over there. And I remember, and maybe it was just the one time that we had to spend the night over there, but I remember when I went to bed, him coming in there and standing in there for a long time, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but it really, really creeped me out, and I just, you know, had my heart pounding, hoping that he would hurry up and leave and let me go to sleep, you know. So, but still, he never did anything else to me, but I heard later on that he had done inappropriate things with some of my younger female cousins Maybe, I never did hear any details, but I got the sense that it was worse for them, and I felt really bad about that. I mean, once I was old enough to realize what he had done to me and heard about my cousins, I just, you know, broke off ties with him basically, because he was just a nasty old man. I mean, he wasn't a nice person anyway. Wasn't ever anyone who I wanted to be around. And so you know, it wasn't exactly hard to cut ties, be done with that. Then the second person, I guess, to do inappropriate things was my cousin, the brother of the sociopath cousin. He may have been a sociopath too. I didn't spend the kind of time with him, not like, or like that I did with his sister. I mean, he would be in the house when I was over there, but didn't usually have a lot of interaction with him. And I didn't want to have interaction with him. He was 3 years older than me, and of course this is, you know, the preacher's son. And well, he when he would come over to the house, his dad would come over to the house to visit with my mom, and he would bring my cousin over sometimes, and any time that he could find some time alone with me, he would put his hand up my skirt, and you know, again, I was still so innocent and unaware, had no knowledge about anything like that, that, again, I knew what he was doing with his fingers was very unpleasant and made me feel disgusted and desperately wanted him to stop. But, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, you know, in the instance with my grandfather, you know, nobody ever knew about that, because, like I said, I was so completely and totally innocent about these things. I had no idea that I should tell an adult, that, I don't know, and plus I always get the feeling, I mean, like, thinking back now, I wonder what, if anything, would have been done if I had known to tell somebody about my grandfather. I never heard anyone talk about things like that in those days, and the way that my dad's family was, especially, I can imagine them just trying to blow it off and pretend like I had never said anything, you know, tell me I was crazy, or I don't know. I can't picture in my mind anyone actually doing anything about that if I had told them. And then, you know, with my cousin, I mean, he was the preacher's son. Preacher was not going to listen to anything bad about his son. In fact, apparently he had messed around with a couple of teenage girls there at church, because I'm going to say I was probably maybe 11, 12 by the time he started doing this, and he was 3 years older than me. And anyway, I heard that when the parents of these girls complained to my uncle about it, they were told, well, he's a teenage boy. It's natural for him to, you know, be curious, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, if a girl had been doing that, it would have been a whole different story. So, anyway, that went on for I don't know how long. I don't know. It seems like forever, like every time he would come over, every time I would be around him, and he would have some way of spending one-on-one time with me. That's what he would do. Ugh. So, and then the final incident, while I was still young enough for this to be pedophilia, basically. I don't know, I guess it's iffy because I think I was 17. I think that it was after my first serious boyfriend, you know, the one that I first had sex with. I think it happened after we broke up. I'm not for sure, though. I can't remember 100% for sure. So I'm going to say I was 16 or 17. And I remember leaving the mall one evening and walking through the parking lot to get to my car, and this man, adult man, I mean, I would guess he was over 30, started talking to me, and telling me, I guess he told me that I was, or said something to me along the lines of I was, you know, attractive, pretty, something, and flirting with me, basically. And I remember at the time, the way I was feeling lonely and rejected. That's why I'm thinking it was after that we had broken up. And just having someone pay me attention, I was so young and dumb at the time. I let him talk to me. I talked to him, and he asked me if I wanted to go get something to eat, and even though I knew I shouldn't, I said okay. He said we were just going across the street to the Wendy's. So we went there, but he parked in the parking lot down towards the end and went in and got food and to go and brought it out. And then at some point he indicated that he wanted to masturbate in front of me. I don't remember if he had, you know, started off asking if I would have sex with him, and worked his way downwards from there when I said no, or if that was his whole intention, but and I do remember him asking me if I would touch it, and I said no, absolutely not, and, you know, let him know that I was very uncomfortable with the whole thing, and I wouldn't even look at him while he did it, and I thought it was extremely gross, but I was kind of trapped in the car with him. So I just hoped that he would get it over with and take me back to my car. And he did, finally. And then he tried to call me. Or maybe he did call me, because I had stupidly given him my phone number, and I feel like I remember him calling, and I talked to him and said no, and then he tried to call back and just kept calling, he tried to call back at once, I think, and I just didn't answer, and that was the end of that, thankfully. So, yeah, that was pretty creepy.